Rocky Balboa. Yes, the perfect movie to bookend the series of the very successful Rocky Saga, and I loved it. Came out in 2006, written and directed by the creator Sylvester Stallone, and of course starring Stallone as the iconic Rocky Balboa title character. Let's get right into it. Let's start off by talking about the Rocky Saga really quickly here. So Rocky was created by Stallone in the early 1970s after he was inspired by a fight he had seen between Chuck Wepner and another fighter. Wepner went the distance. He was the underdog in the fight, and that basically gave Stallone the idea to create this iconic character. Rocky would then go on to be quite a successful movie, won an Oscar for Best Picture, and it spawned 4 additional sequels. Now, in 1990, they made Rocky V, which is actually the least popular movie of the entire saga, and Rocky V was intended to be the final Rocky movie. But fans weren't happy. I wasn't happy with that idea, and actually Stallone himself wasn't happy. He actually gave Rocky V on a scale 1 to 10 a 0. Now let's talk about Rocky. The original one was directed by John G. Avildsen. Rocky V was directed by John G. Avildsen. But Rocky 2, 3, and 4 were all written and directed by Sylvester Stallone. So that's important to note there. So Stallone did not direct Rocky V. He was not happy with the end product. In Rocky V, we saw a dramatic downfall of Rocky financially. He lost all his money that he had in the previous movies from being the champion. He was now bankrupt due to an unscrupulous accountant, which I found was pretty unrealistic. But whatever. It gave him the setting of being back into a modest lifestyle, which actually pays off in this current movie, Rocky Balboa. So let's talk about that. So in Rocky V, we discover he's got brain damage. He can't fight anymore professionally. And he ends up training an uppercomer by the name of Tommy the Machine Gun, who later betrays him. There's a street fight between Rocky and Tommy. Rocky wins. Rocky reconnects with his family. Runs up the Rocky steps one last time with his son. They embrace at the top, and that's how the movie ends. And then we get into a really good homage to the previous movies in the credits. That's how Rocky V ended. A lot of fans were not happy, including myself, and that was in 1990. So it'd be 16 years later that this next Rocky Balboa movie would come out, which is aka Rocky VI. So over the years, Stallone kind of faded from the Hollywood spotlight. That was his choice in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was inspired by watching the George Foreman fight. Now, George Foreman used to be a champion boxer as well. He's quite up there in age, and he did an exhibition fight, and he actually went the distance. And that shocked people all over the world. It also inspired Stallone, similar to the inspiration he had in the original Rocky, to come up with a script and idea about what if Rocky Balboa, who's long since retired, got in the ring one last time for an exhibition fight. What would happen? What would that be about? So he started doing what he does best. He wrote a screenplay, put pen to paper, and started coming up with the ideas. Now, just like the first Rocky movie, the studios weren't big on this. They saw that Rocky V was not a great movie. They were concerned Stallone had been out of the spotlight for so long that what would happen if we go ahead and make this, right? So Stallone really had to sell the ideas to the studios for whatever reason. And, at the end of the day, it paid off. The movie was made. So I also subscribed to Stallone's former magazine called Sly, which is a great magazine. And it had a short run, but his magazines were pretty cool. And when one of his issues, he put a small portion of the screenplay in there for you to preview what it would be like if this movie was made. And I was blown away. It was a really cool and touching scene. I saw how the story unfolded, and I thought this would be great. Well, I'm sure glad it did unfold. So let's get into Rocky VI. So Rocky VI is set in 2006. It's also Rocky Balboa when he's 59 years old, just shy of turning 60. He still looks great. He's in great shape. But this is Rocky as an older fellow. And this is what happens when Rocky Balboa is in the year 2006, what life would be like for him. So the decision was made when he made this movie that one major turning point would be the death of Adrian. Adrian would have passed away just prior to this movie. So he actually consulted with actress Talia Shire about this idea, sort of gain her approval. And I thought that was pretty respectful and pretty cool, and she was all for it. So they went ahead and forged through with this movie. So at the beginning of Rocky Balboa, we soon see there's obviously a new current heavyweight champion in the world, Mason Line Dixon. He wins his fight, but he's pelted with ice. The fans actually don't like this character. They don't like him as the champion. And that's kind of how the movie starts. But then we flash into Rocky in 2006. We see a Rocky Balboa. He's older. He wakes up in the morning, does his routine, and then we see him at the gravesite of Adrian. We quickly realize that she passed away approximately 4 years prior to this movie being set, and that you can see the wounds are still there. He is still heartbroken. Adrian was always the heartbeat of Rocky in these movies. So this is the first Rocky movie without Adrian. So we soon see Paulie there. Paulie, portrayed by Burt Young, does a great job. Does a very emotional performance in this movie. Fantastic performance. And then we find out that Rocky actually did well financially in the late 1990s with Adrian. They opened up a very successful Italian restaurant called Adrian's, which showcases boxing memorabilia from Rocky's heyday and other boxers, as well as paying tribute to Adrian. They obviously ran this restaurant, does really well. It's a 5-star restaurant. And unfortunately, Adrian obviously passed away after the restaurant was open. But that keeps Rocky busy throughout the day. He doesn't go to the boxing gyms anymore. He doesn't train. He's long since retired. He's out of the boxing world at this point in time. So then we're introduced to his son. We get to see Robert as an adult, and I thought that was pretty cool. And he's portrayed by a really good actor by the name of Milo Ventimiglia. For those of you who don't know, Milo's the main character in the hit TV show This Is Us. And him and Stallone are actually really good friends in real life, so that's kind of cool as well. So he portrays an older version of Robert who's, different from Rocky. He's not a boxer. He looks to be an accountant. He works in a very prestigious firm. But we quickly realize that a lot of the reason Robert's got all these breaks in life is because of his last name being related to Rocky. And we see that he's kind of embarrassed to Rocky. Rocky at one point shows up to where he works, and Robert's, embarrassed. And when Rocky asks, "Is there something I've done wrong?" he basically just says, "Look, you cast a big shadow here." At the same time, people are coming up and asking for autographs, including Robert's boss, who's a bit of a jerk in this movie. He actually sees Rocky and comes up and wants a photo with Rocky. So you can see where Robert definitely wants to distance himself, wants to create his own kind of legacy for his own life and stuff like that. So we get to see that. We also see that Rocky does a annual tour of all the spots that him and Adrian would frequent, and that's a really touching moments there with him going to the old pet shop where she used to work, and the way they film the flashbacks are so cool, and it's very touching with the music, and it brings you back to the original Rocky, about how Adrian and Rocky first met. They went on, shows them skating on the ice. Of course, the arena is now being torn down. You see him outside Mickey's gym, and Mickey's gym, the paint's coming down off the wall, and Rocky makes a comment that everything's kind of fallen apart, and Paulie agrees with him, and he says, when you live in a place long enough, you become that place. So that was kind of cool. So you can see Rocky's true Philadelphia, and he loves where he lives, even if it's a modest lifestyle. So he's moved on from there. We see a more damaged Paulie, who admits that he didn't have the best relationship with his sister Adrian in the previous movies, and that he had some bad times. And Rocky reminds him that she always loved him. So there's some touching scenes there. And then what he does is he kind of reconnects with a past character from the original Rocky movie, portrayed by a different actress this time around. But in the original Rocky, he walked home a troubled teenager who's hanging out with the wrong people, and he was trying to give a lecture to her while he's walking her home, make sure she got home safe. In the end, she said, "Screw you, creepo." So in this movie, she's a bartender at the pub he attends, and he doesn't remember her, but she remembers him. And they soon determine this is the same Little Marie, as the character's called in the original Rocky movie, and they develop a friendship. What's really cool is they don't develop a romantic relationship, and I thought that was smart, and I thought that was respectful, especially the character of Adrian. Not that Rocky couldn't have a new relationship, but I just thought that would counteract everything that this movie stood for. So Marie is played by Geraldine Hughes. She's a really good actress. She's an Irish actress. And she has a son by the name of Steps, who's portrayed by James Francis Kelly III, who's kind of a teenager on the brink of going either way, good or bad. And Rocky sort of becomes his mentor, and they kind of hang out, and it's almost like a son that he didn't have. But at the same time, there's that connection that Rocky's trying to build with his son Robert. And Robert's canceling on dinners and stuff like that with Rocky. And you can see that there's a bit of trouble there. So what happens in this movie is there's a computer-generated fight between the current heavyweight champion of the world, Mason Dixon, and an older version of Rocky, like a Rocky from the 1980s, essentially, who would come out the victor. So they do this really cool computer fight. Everybody around the world watches it, and the computer version of Rocky actually wins the fight, which causes huge controversy. Um, and even Paulie mentions it to Rocky, and Rocky watches the clip and kind of just sloughs it off type thing. The promoters for Mason Dixon see this as an opportunity. What if we can get his popularity up by having Mason do a friendly exhibition fight with old Rocky Balboa? That'd be cool. At the same time, Rocky says there's a beast that he needs to unleash in him, something that's making it hard to breathe. And he thinks, what if I got into some small fights again, like just amateur fights, just for fun? That's the one thing he misses is boxing, you find out in this movie. So he has to go to the boxing commission, the same commission that basically wouldn't license him in the previous Rocky 5 due to the brain damage he had. This time around, Rocky actually passes all the tests. But they still don't want to license him. They're just too concerned about his age and everything and the liability factor. And Rocky delivers a powerful, moving speech, basically say, look, I'm pursuing this dream, and why are you trying to stop me? And at the end of the day, they go ahead and they license him, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, of course, enter in the promoters who approach Rocky at his restaurant and suggest that, there'd be really cool to have a friendly fight with Mason Dixon. It would be for charity. But Rocky basically says, look, I don't want to get mangled or embarrassed. So he does agree to it, which is pretty cool. So it's all over the news. And, of course, people are saying this is a joke. Rocky's going to get destroyed. And Rocky's son's more embarrassed than ever now at this point. So there's a confrontation between Rocky and Robert. Verbal confrontation. Robert approaches Rocky and basically begs him not to do it, and because it's bad for Rocky and it's bad for him, his reputation. And Rocky delivers one of the most powerful, inspirational, motivational speeches I have ever seen. As a matter of fact, the speech he delivers, which Stallone wrote, is actually delivered by motivational speakers to this day. And there's motivational speeches on YouTube. You can go just type it in, the Rocky motivational speech. You'll see it. And it is powerful. And it makes sense. And basically what he says in a nutshell to Robert, if he doesn't believe in himself, he's not going to have a life. And that nobody hits as hard as life. Life will knock you down and keep you there if you let it. But it's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And that can mean anything, just like the previous Rocky movies, motivational stuff. That can mean anything in any scope of life, right? So I thought that was fantastic. At the end of the day, Robert and Rocky reconnect. And then they get into the training. And they bring back Duke, portrayed by actor Tony Burton, who is Apollo's trainer in the previous Rocky movies and became Rocky's trainer, Rocky 4. Yes, the original Duke is back. And he looks great. He's quite a bit older, obviously, but he's still in pretty good shape. And they talk about the training. And it's just realistic. It's a realistic version. Rocky's 59. He's not 30 anymore. And basically Duke says, look, you know everything there is to know about fighting, so we don't need to get into this. And you've got calcium deposits in your hands. You're older, basically. So speed is out of the question. What we need to do is build some hurting bombs. So get into heavy lifting, weights, etc. And then the training montage comes on. And man, it is fantastic. Just fantastic. Watching him run up the Rocky steps one last time, oh my gosh, blew me right away. So then we get into Las Vegas. So how they filmed this was really cool. So they did put an offer out there. They were doing a professional fight in Las Vegas at the time, and Mandalay Bay. And they said, look, we're going to be filming Rocky Balboa after the fight. We want everybody to stay. So all those people in the stadium, like thousands of people, were actually there for professional fights. And then they went right in to directing. And that just shows you the talent Stallone has. He's able to get in there and direct an entire 10-round exhibition fight and keeping the guests there. And he only has a short window of doing it. So not only is he directing and filming it, he's Rocky Balboa in the ring at 59 years old do this. So again, just amazing that this guy can do this. Mike Tyson's even there as a cameo, so it's really cool. And the motivation this time around for Rocky isn't to win the title. It's not to win any money. It's just to go the distance one last time for him and obviously for us, for the fans. So the way they shoot this fight is super, super cool. They've never done this before. They shoot it as if it's a live boxing match. So you can see the color on your screen changes. It's like you're watching HBO Boxing Live. They actually have the little HBO box and the time stuff on the bottom corner of the screen to show you it's a real fight, essentially. And it feels like a real fight. What I liked about this fight, where the punches delivered, made sense. Rocky's not in the best shape of his life. He's not 30 years old anymore. And this guy's a champion of the world. So the way they film the fight makes sense. It's not over the top, and it's realistic. I liked it. The other thing, too, about this character, Mason Dixon, unlike your other previous opponents in the Rocky movies, he's not really a bad guy. Like, he's not trying to come over the top like Ivan Drago or Dolph Lundgren. He is just a struggling heavyweight champion of the world trying to be popular again in the boxing world. So he doesn't hate Rocky Balboa. Rocky doesn't hate Mason Dixon. There's no hate going into this. So it's a different type of Rocky movie that way as well. I like that. And the fight scenes are fantastic. Again, Antonio Tarver, who plays Mason Dixon, is a professional fighter. So it's not hard to choreograph boxing with this guy. Amazing how it ends. They had two different endings filmed. One where Rocky wins, one where he doesn't win. And let's just put it this way. They made the right decision. And it pays respect to the previous Rocky movie, and it made sense. At the end of the movie, there's a touching scene where he's essentially paying his respects to Adrian, as he usually does. And the line of, "Adrian, we did it," is fantastic. And then he fades off to the background. And the credit scene, which you should stick around for, has everyday people running up the Rocky steps. No actors, everyday people, because people do that all the time there. And what a way to end the movie. Fantastic. I remember seeing the theater, people cheered in the movie. I hadn't heard that in a long time in a Rocky movie. And this was a true book ending to the Rocky saga. Again, the studios weren't too keen on making this, but boy, thankfully Stallone did. And you can see he put his heart and soul 100% into this movie. No doubt about it. What a great way to end the series. Very realistic and touching performance by Rocky. As far as pros and cons go, I have absolutely no cons. They're all pros. This movie was fantastic. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of disappointed it wasn't considered by the Academy Awards for an award. I assume because it's a sixth movie in a series, they're a little hesitant to do that. Having said that, though, in the later movies, Creed, Stallone finally would be recognized as in the best supporting actor role. And I thought that was good. This was Stallone's final Rocky film, and he makes no bones about it. Like, the way they go out. I will say in the 10th round of the exhibition fight, the last round, Paulie basically yells at him, "Rocco, this is the last round of your life." And that really resonates with you when you're watching this movie, realizing this is the last time I'm going to see Stallone as Rocky fighting in the ring. And it kind of made you sad, but also warmed your heart at the same time too, right? It was a really good way to end the fight, and I thought it was just fantastic. I highly recommend Rocky Balboa. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 10. I give my top 10 movies usually 11 out of 10. This is pretty close to an 11, but I give it a 10. Very well done. Great movie. It's not rushed by any means. Every scene counts. It's fantastic. And as I'm getting up there in age, I can really respect Stallone coming out and doing this portrayal. Also, it's a very emotional portrayal. He lets his guard down, and I like that. It's a very realistic version of what Rocky would be like in the year 2006 if he didn't have Adrian in his life. It's bang on realistic there. So of course we would think that would be his last time as Rocky, but of course Creed would later come out. Anyways, tell me what you thought of Rocky Balboa. If that motivational speech inspired you, it sure does. Inspires me all the time when I think about it. And leave some comments below, subscribe, and like my channel. All right, take care.